There are 339 books in the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge, and I'm going to read all of them, and I mean every single last one of them. The Reading Challenge includes all of the books that Rory Gilmore read or talked about during the run of the highly popular mid-2000s TV series Gilmore Girls. Now, to put an additional spin on the challenge, I'm going to read the books in random order, so stay until the end of the video where we spin the wheel to find out what our next book in the challenge is going to be. Hi guys, and welcome back to the challenge. So today we have book 12 in the series. Today I have something steamy for you, which is The Graduate by George Webb. The Graduate is a classic from 1963. It's quite a short novel. It's like 270 pages, and it became this like absolute massive success, especially after the movie was released with Dustin Hoffman, I believe. So yeah, let's get into The Graduate. So The Graduate is a story of talented Benjamin. Benjamin is just returning home for a break after he's graduated from his bachelor's degree, I believe. And he is now going home and considering how to continue on with life. So he has like he won all these awards. He is already pre-accepted into Yale and Harvard and all these amazing universities for graduate school, and is, had been planning to start a career in teaching. But as he returns home, and he is just completely uninspired at this point, and disappointed in life and disappointed in his education, and he has like no motivation of doing anything, and then he is returning home on that note and in that mood. And then, one of the first nights when he's back at home with his parents, they are preparing a short celebration for him with all their friends and neighbors, and they basically want to show around how amazing their educated academic intellectual son is, and he is just really not having it. He is not interested in any of this, and he just wants time to think for himself, and he does not have any interest on continuing his education, and he has no idea what to do with his life and what to do going on from that point. Over the next few days, this gets into like a back and forth with his parents a lot, where they want to find out what's going on with him. They want to push him to continue his education. He does not want to do anything. He just wants to stay home and relax in the pool and deliberate life and think about life. And at that party as well, there is this one couple who is the husband is the lawyer partner of Benjamin's father, and then there's his wife, Mrs. Robinson, who is slowly approaching Benjamin, and it's all, I guess, very innocent at the beginning, or at least made to believe very innocent. And he ends up she is trying to engage him into a discussion, and he is not really interested at all to talk with anybody. And it ends up with him driving Mrs. Robinson home in his car to, she has been pretending that he needs a lift home because her husband is not there anymore because he had to go see a client. So Benjamin takes her home very reluctantly, actually. And then he ends up at her house, and she's, trying to lure him in and asking him, "Oh, can you please come in? I don't like to go into a dark house." And then this kind of escalates to a situation where she's pretending everything to be very innocent, but actually she has a clear motive, which is Benjamin. And it escalates to a situation where Benjamin ends up upstairs in a room, and she is completely naked and basically trying to seduce him, and he is just like completely shocked and trying to get out of there. And before he can leave, she tells him though that she's available to him anytime that he is interested or she pleases. And this kind of, although he does leave, and then over the next few days he doesn't do anything really, he even goes on a trip, but it always kind of stays back into in his head, and at some point he does call her up again. So this is basically the whole premise of The Graduate, and the kind of situation that Ben finds himself in, over this summer break, wondering what to do with life. And then this attractive, mature older woman is trying to seduce him and get him into bed. And it's all very new to him, and he is looking for something exciting in his life. So he is kind of vulnerable to her advances, I would say. Now, at the beginning of the book, I really liked how it started out, although it later on does go into a very different direction very quickly. So I would say that probably the first third of the book is was very interesting to me and was very much focused on that kind of forbidden affair, I would say. But then after that, it does become a bit boring to me. I'm not going to spoil the ending or anything, but it does become a little bit boring. And one of the main reasons that I found, wondering myself in the end about is the characters, basically. So I found that in the beginning, the first few pages, I quite liked Ben, but then I found that there was, number one, there was no real character development on him. And he is just from beginning to end, he is very impolite, he is unlikable, he is rude, and he is very pushy. And I don't know if this was just, his character, because I did feel that others in the book are very similar to that as well, or if it maybe also has something to do with the that time, like 1960s. Was that more on par with how people in the US in the 1960s behaved? But I did not feel like any empathy or liking towards Ben or any other character for that matter. They all seemed like very rude, impolite, and just, focused on their own goals. So that's one thing that I noted. Like, for example, it feels like whenever two characters are having a dialogue or a discussion in this book, it's two persons having a very different discussion. There's no like dialogue going on. There's basically two monologues, and they are not listening to each other. They are not engaging each other. Everybody just wants to, push his point or their point of view, and they just, make a statement and then believe that the other person should just follow through and just should do whatever I tell that person to do. And they seem very surprised if somebody just would not do what is expected of them, or they would want them to do. So, for example, Ben's parents are very overbearing with him, and, they push him to do things that he doesn't want to do. And it's just, okay, Ben, do this, Ben, do that. And then he is trying to have a discussion on why he is not comfortable with this or that action. But his parents just keep talking and pushing him until he does it. And Ben actually is doing the same thing with other people as well in his life. So it's not only his parents, it's Ben as well. It's Mrs. Robinson. It's everybody in this book just pushing their own wishes and their own desires without any discussion with the other person that they are talking to. So I found that very weird. I'm not sure if that was a deliberate tone of the book, but I did not find it very engaging for myself, I would say. So that was one point. And then another thing that I also would like to add, yeah, I mean, of course, Ben is confused and he doesn't want to do with what to do with life. And I believe we can all, to some extent, relate to that. I'm sure everybody has been in a situation where they're just not quite sure what life holds and what they're supposed to do as a next step. But the way that he behaves feels very strange to me in a few ways. So one of the things that I find super weird is the point that he decides that he now has feelings for Elaine, for Mrs. Robinson's daughter, because he is taking her on this horrible date that he feels pushed to take Elaine onto that date. And he's taking her from bar to bar, and then even ending up in a strip joint. At that strip club, he is again very rude to Elaine, and he is pushing her to be in a situation that she's very uncomfortable in. And then as soon as they get out of there, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, that's not actually who I am. But from his point of view and from his narrative, we don't see any change that would explain that. Like, when did he suddenly start liking Elaine? He, from the beginning, he has said, I think they were on a date in high school and it didn't went well. They didn't like each other. He always felt that she was attractive, but he said that they didn't click or anything. And at that date, there was no one point that I could make out that would stand out to me where I could say, oh, okay, here is, when he starts to realize that this girl is actually more interesting and that he starts liking her. And there is no such point in that whole evening. But he then just, does a 180 flip. And from that evening on, she's like the love of his life. And I can't follow that line of thought. So it feels, from that point on, basically the rest of the book feels very inconsequential and kind of ridiculous to me. So that was a little bit of a pity, because I really did enjoy how the book started out. And then the other thing, but that also might have something to do with 1960s and things being different back then. But I mean, Ben is basically an absolute stalker, and then it's to a point where you would have to get afraid of him, somebody following you around for thousands of kilometers and then just moving next into where you go to university, you go to school, and he's not like even there for any other reason than trying to pursue you, even though Elaine's told him multiple times that she doesn't want to see him. So, that pushy stalker situation felt very cringe to me as well. I guess we have to keep an open mind for, it was, 60 years ago. So, things were different back then. But nowadays, that's definitely something that would not hold up, I would say. Then there's another thing that I guess it has to be delivered because it happens so often, and it's the word look. And especially Benjamin, but you also see other characters using that, is like almost every other sentence he starts out with, he's trying to convince somebody of his point of view, or he's just at the end of his nerve, and then he is like, oh, now look, this is what I meant. Look, now look here. Look, Elaine. This is it. Look, Mrs. Robinson. Look, father. Look. It's from page 1 to page 270. I don't think there is a book out there with this many instances of the word look on such a short amount of pages. It's impossible. And it's also to a point where it feels kind of ridiculous reading it, and kind of takes you out of the fantasy of reading a book, because it doesn't feel real anymore. It feels so ridiculous. But it also speaks to that, to what I said before, that people are just not listening to each other in this novel. Everybody has their own motives, and there is no sort of any reconciliation between those two motives, that when two people are speaking. It felt exhausting reading so many look here statements, very exhausting. Overall, I'm very excited to have finally read the famous The Graduate. All I ever knew about The Graduate is the famous line from the movie, I guess. That is like, I guess when Dustin Hoffman says, or Benjamin says, you are trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson. So I think that's a line that everybody knows about. But then the rest of the book and the story, I think you need to read it to know about it. So, for example, I had no idea that there was this Elaine character in there. So I've never heard about that. But then she's actually a very big part of the book. So I am glad that I finally read The Graduate. And it was like comparing to some of the previous book that I read in the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge. It was one of the books that I actually did enjoy reading. It was a novel. It was a funny, interesting story. It was a little bit, steamy, and with at the affair and the theme of infidelity. It was kind of exciting reading it, so I did enjoy that. From the rating, I did consider going up to 4 stars until I got to the middle section of the book. But having finished the book, I finally rated it 3 out of 5 stars, because I do feel the book kind of falls apart after the middle. Nevertheless, it was still exciting reading it, and I just had a hard time understanding some of the motivations behind Ben's acting, which led to a situation where I didn't feel myself fully immersed into the book anymore. So yeah, that's about it for The Graduate. Now, I would love to hear from you guys. Did any of you guys read The Graduate? Did you like it? Did any of you guys see the movie, for example? Is it worth having a look? And also, did any of you guys read the sequel that's quite new, I think? It's like in the 2000s. Did any of you guys read the sequel? I think it's called Homeschool. Is that worth a read? And does it connect well to the original story? Please, yeah, drop me a message below. And yeah, you all know what's left to do. So we are going to select the next book in the challenge for next week right now. Okay, guys, I'm ready here with my wheel of the remaining books. We have 327 books remaining in the challenge. So, let's go ahead and spin the wheel, see what we get for next week. 3, 2, 1, and go! Let's see, what do we get next? What do we get next? The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. I have never heard of that. It sounds like a novel. We'll see. Yeah, see you guys next week with a review of that book. All right, thank you. See you soon. Bye bye, guys.